Hey everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant, and in this productivity guide, you're going to learn how to time block like a pro, finally taking back control of your day, and of course, maximizing one of your most precious assets, your time, because time is one of the few things you can never get back. So timestamps below, along with some other helpful videos to maximizing your productivity, like how to set up a vision board, set goals, and outsource some of the work that you just don't have time for, which is pretty much all of us. So let's go ahead. Before we dive into this simple 7-step system for time blocking and getting started with time blocking as a beginner, let's go ahead and answer the question, what on earth time blocking actually is? Because all it is setting an appointment with yourself, just like you'd set an appointment with a potential client or you set an appointment with the dentist or doctor. You are setting an appointment with yourself. You're looking at your entire day and you are creating blocks and segments for you to get specific things done at a specific time. And that's literally all time blocking is. And the big advantage of time blocking before we get into the very first step, which is going to be prioritizing, is it allows you to get a lot more done because it forces you to be realistic with how long things are actually going to take. And it allows you to focus on one task at a time, completely squashing the need to multitask at all. Because as science has shown us time and time again, our brains might be able to juggle a lot of things, but it's not the most effective way to actually get things done. So the first step to actually making sure that your time blocks support you and whatever your goals are is to prioritize all of that stuff that you have on your to-do list. Because let's face it, it's a lot and the to-do list is probably going to last you a lifetime. It's almost impossible to finish all of your ideas, your projects, and wish list items. So the first step to time blocking is deciding what is that one thing? What is your big priority? And to help you with this, I recommend you pick up the book by Gary Keller, The One Thing. I'm holding it upside down here. I have read this through several times, and it is one of the best productivity books I have ever read. And if you were only to read one book on productivity, The One Thing would be the one I'd recommend. And so the whole concept here is to write down all of your tasks, everything that's on your plate this week, next month, and just go through a giant brain download of everything under the sun, even things that you want to do in a year or so, because you just want to get everything on paper. I like using one of my Moleskine notebooks, and I will just on a regular basis write out everything that's on my mind, because you don't want to be storing anything up here, and it's going to be hard to start time blocking effectively if you don't already have a clear picture of what is really important to you. So let's go ahead and go through this hypothetical example here. And let's say I have all of these different things that are on my plate for the next week or the coming month. So obviously there's going to be a lot on here and we're going to need to organize it. So the next step is to classify the tasks. Don't worry, we will get to Google Calendar and setting up your time blocks, but first we need to inventory all of this stuff that is on your plate and coming up in the future. And so the first category I recommend are stones. And I like calling these stones because these are things that you can't move. At the end of the day, you have family and friend obligations, you most likely have work obligations, and of course, other appointments that you don't have control over. And that's just part of life, right? So we want to make an entire category just for those stones, because those are the things we're going to have to work around, because those are the things that we don't control. And you might find you have stones that you might be able to change in the future to better support your work schedule or time blocks. So this can also be really eye-opening as well as to the obligations that you have. The next one that you should put on your list, this isn't necessarily going to be a category, but just keep this in the back of your mind. You always want a time block for planning time. So there might be things on your to-do list that you need to do in order to complete a task. And so put all of these things, preparation type tasks, in a planning time category. Now, this next category is my personal favorite, and I call it maker time. These are the things as entrepreneurs your most important tasks that you need to do to push your business forward. So when it comes to administrative items like checking email or sending things off to your accountant or doing accounting and organizing business files, that's not maker time stuff. That's administrative time stuff that we all just have to deal with. But when it comes to doing some sales calls, writing a new sales letter, working on your customer onboarding process, things that are really important in the core process of acquiring customers and keeping customers, that should be in your maker time category. And the final category I recommend is communication time. So here's our list broken down by different categories. You can see we have maker time, communication time, planning time, we have some stones, and then we have some administrative tasks because we all have admin things to do. Of course, you can come up with your own categories. These are just the ones I like to use to keep things simple. Now, before we dive into actually creating your time blocks for the day, I just want to quickly add the importance of delegating tasks. If you have a budget, if you have any budget at all, look at that administrative block of tasks and see if there's anything in there that you can outsource or delegate. Even if you don't have time to bring on a part-time or full-time virtual assistant, just heading over to Fiverr and Upwork to get 1 or 2 projects done for you is going to be a tremendous help in making sure that you spend more time on those maker tasks and less time on the administrative tasks. So this is what I like to call the time value ladder, and these represent the order and types of tasks that you should look to outsource and delegate as a business owner or entrepreneur. Again, of course, it's going to depend upon your budget. Obviously, if you're just getting started, it doesn't make sense to go hire someone who's going to run your Facebook ads or hire a copywriter who's going to charge you $5,000 to $10,000 to write a sales letter. It's probably better if you do that, but it might make sense to hire someone for $5 or $10 on Fiverr to get a couple administrative things done or create some YouTube thumbnails or blog post graphics to save you time so you can work on something else. So I just wanted to include that in there because I think outsourcing and delegating is something that's very important no matter what stage of entrepreneurship you are in. So going back to our slide here of priorities, we are ready to start planning out how we're going to get all of these things done. Now, what's really cool is this is going to force us to be very realistic with our time, and that leads us to the next step, which is padding. So obviously, we have a bunch of tasks right now, and we need to figure out how much time each one of those tasks are going to take. Now, I'm going to say something really, really out there. You should add 50% to all of your estimates. And the reason I say that is we as human beings tend to be very, very bad when it comes to estimating how long things actually take. When we get to the second to last step track, you'll actually be able to close the padding percentage, but I highly recommend including a 50% pad with all of your estimates. So here's how this would actually work. So before you go roll your eyes too much, let's go ahead and look at my maker tasks again. So if I look at my estimates for filming and copywriting and coming up with new course ideas, altogether, I'm estimating that that's probably going to take me about 12 hours over the course of a week. And if I add 50%, all of a sudden, instead of 12 hours, I'm looking at 18 hours. And if you've never tried time blocking before, this sounds pretty ridiculous because I'm going to be creating a schedule where I literally have 6 extra hours in there. And the reason that padding is so important is it allows you to stick to your time blocks, because if you haven't actually tracked how long things take before, or how long things have taken you in the past, it's really hard to know if your estimate is accurate because you might be doing something that's brand new. And if you don't give yourself enough time, then when you start time blocking, which is the number one objection, is what happens if it takes more time? Well, then number one, your entire day gets ruined because you have to get it done and you push everything back. Or number two, you don't finish it because you have to move on to the next time block. So adding these padding times allows you to stick to the habit, allows you to stick to the schedule. And worst comes to worst, you have a bunch of extra time to get some other things done. That's the worst case scenario with the padding. Now, if you're still rolling your eyes and you're like, there's no freaking way I am going to add 50% to all of my tasks, I know what I'm doing, I know how much time things are going to take, Okay, great. Then go ahead and use the buffer block strategy. No matter how good you get at tracking, I recommend having at least two 90-minute blocks. I like having these on Tuesdays and Thursdays where you don't schedule anything. Because after all, when it comes to creating your time blocks, you don't want to schedule literally every single minute of the day, because then if one thing goes wrong, the whole system falls apart, right? And so you can either have two 90-minute buffer blocks, or you could just have one giant half day where it is completely open. And that's something I used to do, where Thursday afternoons, I would never plan anything. And that gave me a 4-hour block to get all of those tasks done that poured or spilled over from the other days when my time estimation didn't work out, which happens a lot. And now that you have your priorities, you have all of your tasks listed out, you have estimates of how long things are going to take, you're ready to actually start putting things on your calendar. So let's go ahead and go through an example of what this might look like on Google Calendar. Of course, you can use whatever calendar application you want, or later on, I'll show you how you can actually do this on paper. So the first thing I like doing is starting creating a day frame. That is when I'm going to wake up and when I'm going to go to sleep. So let's say I need to go really hard this week and really work on some projects. So I'm going to wake up a few hours early and get up at 4 a.m. My normal wake up time is around 5 or 5:30. So 4 is pretty extreme. So let's just say 4 a.m. because we're going really hard this week. And if I'm waking up at 4, that means I need to go to bed at 8 o'clock. So you do have to be realistic with how much time you need for sleep. After all, we are not robots. We might be machines, but we're not robots. So let's go on and then add in our stones. Now, luckily, I'm in a place in my business and life where I don't have a lot of stones right now, especially since nobody's allowed to go outside. So right now, I only have one meeting on Friday that takes up most of the morning. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my stone there. Then the next thing I'm going to schedule are my maker blocks. So I like doing the maker blocks in the morning. Now, I know I get a lot of pushback on this for some reason, where a lot of people believe that they are night owls and they can do their best work at night. And if that's truly you, then okay. But that's a very small percentage of the population has that chronotype. Most chronotypes are actually not designed to work late into the night. And all a chronotype is just describing your natural circadian rhythm. So there's some people who are naturally night owls. There's some people who are naturally morning people, like this crazy person. And then there's some people who are just naturally normal, where they wake up around 7 or 8 a.m. ready to go. So most of us are going to get our best work done in the morning. Doesn't mean you have to wake up at the crack of dawn in order to be productive. So let's say, again, going really hard. So we're going to do 6 hours in the morning of maker time. And I would do 5 days a week, but I have that stone, so I just have to work around it. So the next thing I'm going to add to my calendar is my planning time. This is really important because we need to plan a time to plan, otherwise we won't have a plan. So this is a big mistake that I made when I first started time blocking, because I would find that it would be Saturday afternoon or Sunday evening, and I'd realize, oh yeah, I don't have a plan for next week. I should probably do that. I like doing it on Friday. There's some people out there who really like doing it Sunday evening. I found that when I tried doing this Sunday evening, I would just get too amped up and then I couldn't go to sleep because I was thinking about all the stuff I wanted to work on. So I like doing it on Friday. That way, even if I do work over the weekends, which I do often, I'm recording this on a Sunday afternoon, that I know I have a plan going into next week and there's no anxiety if I actually do get to take a break. So the next time block I like adding is the communication time. So you'll notice that I am going in order of the different categories that I went through. So it's very simple by the time you get to actually creating your time blocks in Google Calendar or whatever application that you're using. So next, I'm going to give myself some me time, because after all, like I said, we are machines, but we aren't robots. And so we need to recharge. We need to give ourselves time to eat, to rest, to sleep. And so with this particular schedule, I actually really enjoyed it when gyms were open, hitting the gym at 11:30 and then coming back to work around 1. And that would just give me plenty of time to recharge and refresh, because I worked 6 hours in the morning. Then I had 30 minutes of communication with my team or some client emails, and then it was off to a nice refresh and recharge session, gym, shower, and lunch. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and begin filling in my time with with the other things that are on my plate and adding the buffers. So I'll add some time for replying to YouTube comments, and then I'll go ahead and add a day close. I will talk more about that in the last step. This is so important, but for now, we're just going to gloss over it. And then I'm going to go ahead and calendar block my dinner. Now, you can actually create multiple calendars in Google Calendar. You can just click other calendars here or the plus button. And I actually have a calendar specifically for health where I put when I'm going to eat and when I'm going to work out, because personally, I just am so terrible with remembering to eat. I'm one of those people who can work all day and then be asked, hey, what'd you have for lunch? And be like, totally forgot. So if you don't have that problem, then you probably don't need to calendar block your lunch or meal times, but I do. So I'm going to go ahead and add that here. And then I'm going to add my 2 buffer blocks. So I'm going to add buffer blocks that are larger than that 90 minutes. And of course, it's your schedule. You're allowed to do whatever you want. And then I'll go ahead and add some blocks for client work and client management. And so something I liked to do when I had a lot of back and forth with clients is I would create these blocks in the afternoon, and then I would tell my clients that that was the time that I was available to talk. You'd be surprised if you have clients how much they're actually going to respect this, because it shows that you respect your time and you respect theirs. And so they know those are the windows or times of the day where they can schedule a phone call with you if they have any questions, and it allows you to focus and be uninterrupted during your other time blocks. And we'll just add some more comment replies because I get enough comments where I have to do it almost every day now. And then that is just a sample of what a week might look like when you are time blocking. Now, is this going to be what your week looks like by the end of it? Of course not. Life happens. Things always change, but this could be an ideal, and I highly recommend going through several different versions of your ideal week or how you want your calendar to look so you can kind of compare and contrast, and then you can experiment with different schedules and figure out what works best for you. And so now let's go ahead and talk about transition, because if you're looking at this and you're going, wow, that's a lot to do on the outset, you're right. And I don't recommend going all the way through this process for your first couple of weeks or your first month of time blocking. So here's what I recommend. Commit to time blocking half your day. So commit to time blocking the maker time and those most important tasks, and then leave the second half of your day open. So when you're first starting out, for your first month or so, just time block between 11 and 12. That way you have the rest of the day that's completely open to be free and work on whatever else comes up. And it's going to help you begin the habit of time blocking, and you're much more likely to stick to it because you have that second half of the day to handle anything that goes wrong and any changes that come up. And eventually you're going to find you're so productive in the morning, you're going to want to do it the rest of the day. So it's a great way to ease into time blocking. So now let's talk about how to be successful with these time blocks, because you've gone through, created all of your priorities, you've estimated how much time it's going to take, and you've scheduled them. You've made appointments with yourself. But you have to respect the appointment with yourself. Just like if you were having lunch with someone, you wouldn't just pick up your phone and start talking to somebody else, right? That would be super rude. So don't do that with yourself. So during your time blocks, unless it's a communication block, it's like a window, you're opening yourself up to the world, close the window. No emails, no texts, no social media, no calls. Just take your phone. Take your phone and just put it someplace else, or put it on mute and throw it in a drawer. What's most important is your phone is not on your desk. They actually did studies to find that your brain's processing power, depending upon how much you use your phone, can actually drop by upwards of 10 to 20% just by having it face down on your desk. So definitely don't have it face down on your desk. I'm just using it because it's a remote for the camera. So when it comes to tuning out, something that's going to be very difficult is training everyone else in your life that you're not on call, because a lot of people are used to sending out an email or sending out a text and then instantly receiving a message back within 10 to 15 minutes. And especially when you start your first half of your day, you're much less likely to run into these problems of other people giving you difficulty with the fact that you're purposely ignoring them. And you know what? Those in your life who actually care about you and actually are supporting you in your business and your growth, even if you're in side hustle mode right now, they will eventually actually respect your time, and they will leave you alone during those time blocks and not freak out that you didn't reply to their random text message within 30 minutes, right? Now, obviously, if your job or business requires you to be open to other people, then choose the people who are allowed to interrupt you. So that is the only asterisk here. And I've been in this situation. I used to have a boss and I couldn't just ignore his messages, right? I had to respond to him, just like when I worked at an agency, I was required to respond to emails within a 90-minute to 2-hour time frame, depending upon the question and the client. And so what you want to do here is, if you have that external constraint, someone's telling you have to do that in order to keep your job or keep your clients and keep your livelihood, then identify those people who are allowed to break into your time block because they have that power, and then ignore everything else. So that's not an excuse to, quickly text your friend back because you're allowing your boss or a really big client to interrupt your time. So I'll get off that. Let's go ahead and talk about tracking. So you've gone through this entire planning process, and hopefully you're up and running with time blocking a little bit. Now it's time to talk about tracking, because tracking is how you're actually able to begin to improve upon your time blocking. So you want to monitor how much time each one of your tasks takes. Now, this can be really annoying. I'm just going to be straight up and honest with you. This can be really annoying depending upon how you choose to do it and depending upon how many tasks you have per day. So my recommendation is, as you go through your day, adjust these time blocks based upon how long things actually took, and then add in time blocks where things got in the way or messed up your schedule. That way, at the end of the week, you can look at your time blocks and they represent what actually happened. Because what we're looking at right now is, I can almost virtually guarantee that's not how it's going to look at the end of the week. Some things are going to go longer, some things are going to go shorter, and some things are going to be interrupted. And so if you have that, it's going to be a lot easier for you to plan in the future, and you'll start to see patterns of certain things that seem to continually get in the way, and then you'll be able to preemptively stop those from messing with your plan. So if you really want to get granular with this, there is an application called Rescue Time. I recommend going with the paid service. The free version, I don't think, gives you enough information for it to be worth your time. And what Rescue Time does is it's creepy tracking thing, but it looks at everything that you're doing on your computer, and it spits out these very detailed reports of how long you were spending on specific types of websites and applications. So you can look back over your days and weeks and months and see how you actually wound up spending your time. And depending upon the type of work you do, this might be really helpful, or it might not actually wind up being all that helpful, because it's only telling you the applications and websites that you're on. It's not necessarily telling you exactly what project you were working on. And so for that, I recommend something that I know it's painful, but just going pen and paper. So the reason I like doing this, and I'm actually have gone back to doing this exercise for a while because I've allowed my time blocks to get way too messy, is you write down. So you still plan out your time blocks, whether you do it on paper or you go ahead and do it in Google Calendar. But then as the day goes on, you write down the time you started something, the time you stopped something, and then you write down the activity or project. And so I actually have a Google Sheet that we use across our entire company where everyone puts in their activity code and their project code, and I do it as well. But the power of doing it written is it forces you to stick to your time blocks. Because you know why? I'll tell you something. When I am in Basecamp, our project manager, and I see a couple of pings pop up, private messages, or I see some notifications, it's a lot easier for me to ignore them because I know I'm going to have to stop whatever I was working on. I'm going to have to write it out, and then I'm going to have to make another line for the 5 or 10 minutes I was replying to the comment. And so it actually creates a little bit of a pain for you to break your schedule, and it creates pain around multitasking. Now, if you have to switch between tasks like every 5 minutes for some reason, then this is probably going to be overkill. But for 9 out of 10 business owners and entrepreneurs, this is a great way to go to making sure that you stick to your time blocks, and it makes you really conscious of how you're spending your time, especially when you write 7:45 and then you write 11 a.m. and you go, wait, what did I really just spend that much time on that one task? That was not what I was supposed to do. And so it keeps you very aware and conscious throughout the day. it is annoying. I'm not going to pretend like it's easy. It is really annoying and I don't like it at all, but it definitely will help you stick with your time blocks and it will help you be more productive because tracking is the only way you're going to improve. After all, what isn't tracked can't be measured and what isn't measured cannot be improved. So now let's go ahead and go into the last step in our process, which is the close. And I have to give credit where credit's due. I have added this to my time blocking regimen after reading the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, where he talks about how to be much more effective with those maker blocks in the morning. That's another book I recommend. Definitely read that one after the one thing if you want to take a deeper dive into what we're talking about here. So what's really important with allowing your brain to recharge is giving a clear signal to your brain when it's okay to turn off. So if you're like any other business owner or entrepreneur, you've had the experience of trying to go to sleep and then all of a sudden everything under the sun seems to just keep rushing through your mind and it starts racing and you're thinking about all the things you want to do or all the things that are undone, and it's really hard to just turn it off and actually go to sleep. And so what the day close allows you to do is tell your brain it is okay to turn off. Now, there's not some manual switch. You're not going to feel it consciously at all. But when you put down on your calendar, the workday is over, whether you choose 5:30 like the book recommends, or it's 7 or 8:30 at night. The time isn't important. What is important is that you create a clear cutoff for work. Now, it should be with at least an hour and a half to 2 hours before bed, so your brain can kind of calm down and you're not, staring at a screen like most of us do right before we go to sleep anyway. But whenever it is, you just need a close to your day. You need a clear cutoff where you're done checking messages, you're done working on things, and your brain can recharge and relax. And once you have that day close, your brain and your subconscious is going to look at the day and say, okay, everything's done and there's a plan for things later, which means I don't have to worry about them and I can just rest and recharge. And this is also going to help with your ideas, because how many times have you had an idea just walking through the grocery store, right? Or doing chores around the house, something completely unrelated to work, and the idea pops into your mind. Well, those types of random moments of insights and inspiration aren't possible when you are telling your brain you need to be conscious and working on something 24/7. And so when you have that cutoff, you allow that subconscious part of your brain to relax, and that's when you're going to start getting that subconscious creativity going, and it should also help you sleep if you've ever struggled with racing mind at night. So thank you so much for watching. Sincerely hope you got some value out of this video and you have a much clearer picture on how to take all of those to-do lists and tasks and wish lists and future projects and distill them down into a time-blocked plan that you can follow. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dive productivity videos just like this one and some shorter ones as well. And until the next, keep building the business you love.